Hey, hey! Welcome to TENGRIDOME episode 25. I'm your host, Iggy, and today we're gonna talk about whatever the fuck. Absolutely everything and nothing in particular at the same time, because I'm currently recording this episode after multiple failed attempts to catch up on Costa vs. Vettori, which I haven't watched, and I missed fucking everything. I missed Fedor knocking out Timothy Johnson. I missed Costa vs. Vettori. I missed whatever fights that were happening at the time. Rico Verhoeven at Glory against the guy whose name I forget. The replacement for Alistair Overeem. The reason is simple. It was my birthday, so I didn't watch any fights, and I got drunk. And I do not regret that decision at all, to be quite frank. And this episode is going to be kind of defined by me talking about things that couldn't really hold my attention for more than a couple of minutes at a time, because of various reasons. Not the least of which may be that I may have undiagnosed ADHD or something. But just stealing Ed's valor as the resident ADHD haver at the fight site. The fight site is ran by ADHD and founded by ADHD, so this is the reason for our success. It's the thing that gives us power. But yeah, I tried catching up on Costa vs. Vettori and I just couldn't fucking do it, because it's essentially the same two exchanges happening over and over again. And the fight overall can be summarized as Israel Adesanya broke Paulo Costa's entire fucking life. Paulo Costa just fucking can't get it together anymore. He's just completely fallen apart. And we've talked a lot about how I think Danny Martin was the most adamant supporter of Paulo Costa at light heavyweight. And I guess he got his wish. The monkey's paw, a finger curled on the monkey's paw, and Paulo Costa is now a light heavyweight, but by virtue of not by virtue of adapting to light heavyweight, but simply by not just not giving a shit about his job anymore. And Vettori is fucking Vettori. Vettori, I think Sriram put it best. Vettori looked like the worst fighter in there, but still won. And when Paulo Costa looks like the better fighter, like, what does that say about you, skill-wise? And the thing that annoys me about Vettori the most is that he seems like he should be a really violent, like a mid-tier knockout puncher, except that he doesn't really knock out anybody, and he's a decision machine, a janky decision machine. And the reason is that he stifles his own offense so much, and his punch mechanics are so ugly that he smothers his own punches so frequently that they end up not hurting as much as they should. And make no mistake, Marvin Vettori should absolutely be able to fade. Should be absolutely fucking. How do you fucking English, man? Oh, all right, Marvin Vettori should be fading mid-tier middleweights left and right. He should be able to do that. Just fucking look at him. But he can't, because his punch mechanics are awful. And Paulo Costa is also it's a weird one, because Paulo Costa has punching power, and he looks like he should have. He looks like he should punch way harder than he actually does. He's more of a clubber, you know. All the stuff that he does is more like attrition based, and in this one it was weird because Vettori was able to push him backwards right out of the gate, and I don't know if it's Costa being concerned about his gas tank, or trying the same I'm gonna fight smart type stuff that he's done against Adesanya, and this is what got him knocked out against Adesanya. But you can't really think too deeply about this fight, because it's Costa versus Vettori. Trying to think too deeply about it it's kind of a fool's errand, The whole point of the matchup is that it's just two slabs of meat slamming into each other over and over again, and this is, I suppose, if this is what you were hoping for, you got what you wanted. You got everything you could really wish for. And if that's the case, and if you enjoyed the fight, then more power to you. I just couldn't get into it. I suppose this makes my analysis irreparably flawed, because I just haven't been able to watch the fight in its entirety without skipping the bits or just quitting halfway through. Because this is what actually happened. I started watching the fight. I watched the first 3 minutes, I think, of the first round uninterrupted, and then I just started skipping through the fight. I started jumping around, and if I saw a cool sequence, or if I saw a glimpse of what I thought was a cool sequence, I would try and rewind and watch that. And halfway through, I just gave up. And yeah, what are you gonna do? You like what you like. Trying to force yourself to trying to force yourself to watch things in their entirety and watch every single fight that happens. As a fight analyst, it's just maybe it's just me. Other analysts are perfectly fine with watching tons and tons and tons of mediocre fights, but I just can't hack it. I burn out so quickly. And yeah, that's it. That's my analysis, I guess, of Costa versus Vettori. That's my recap. That's my, I guess that's my review. 6.5 out of 10. Would not recommend. And what else happened? Fedor knocked out Timothy Johnson. Old man Fedor. Old man Fedor. How old is Timothy Johnson? I actually don't know. I actually can't recall. He is... Oh, he's 36. Oh, that's pretty... That's still pretty young for a heavyweight. So I guess that's a decent win for Fedor at this stage in his career. It's not like a decent win overall if you grade it on a scale of overall goodness in MMA. But still, it's good. It's nice to see him. If Fedor got knocked out by Tim Johnson, and I mean it's far. Fedor is long past the point at which he should have retired, and at this stage in his career, if he's able to knock out at least the Timothy Johnsons of this world, then I guess he should be fine. I mean, once again, it should be a good place to kind of call it quits right now, because he's 45, already has no chin, haven't had a chin for the past 10, maybe even 15 years. Just fucking Fedor, man. And the takes, oh my god, the takes that have been circulating around in the wake of the Fedor fight, and with Daniel Cormier choosing to, in his endless wisdom, to just share with the boundless fountain of worldly wisdom that Daniel Cormier has been able to acquire during years and years of being the world's greatest gatekeeper to subpar light heavyweights that couldn't hack it, that wouldn't be able to hack it against John Jones, or protecting John Jones against Rumble Johnson, has seen fit to comment on the skill level of Fedor Emelianenko, one of the greatest athletes of all time to another one of the greatest athletes of all time. According to Daniel Cormier, I'm sorry, Fedor, but you're mediocre. If you were to join the UFC in 2009, you wouldn't stand out at all amongst any heavyweights. Just What a bizarre statement. I mean, Daniel Cormier does seem to be the guy. He does seem to be aiming for that spot, for that. Does seem to want to replace Dana White somewhere down the line, to become the new president of the UFC. And I guess this is just one of those corporate cockroach things that he does lately. He does them a lot lately, and it's been the narrative for the longest time that Fedor is not the greatest of all time, or not as great as people think he is, because he just hasn't fought in the UFC, or that all the Pride heavyweights that moved to the UFC, they're not as good because they got starched left and right in the UFC, and like the reasons that are. The stated reasons for this are many, or that, they just can't hack it in the cage, or the UFC heavyweights are just better, and or it's just that the drug testing that has ruined them. And I guess this one, the last one, has a certain degree of merit. Not sure about the cage comment, but I guess it also could make sense. And the second is just plain wrong. For the longest time, the UFC heavyweights were essentially like second-class citizens compared to the Pride heavyweights. The Pride is where all the good heavyweights. That's where the good heavyweights went. And me and Fenyu have done multiple fight watch marathons. We would watch old-ish fights from the early 2000s, from mid 2010, and all that kind of stuff. And if you watch, especially if you watch heavyweight and light heavyweight fights, nothing fucking changed. And this is another very popular argument. Oh, the game just progressed. The game has grown. MMA has evolved, and not at heavyweight it didn't. Neither did. The game didn't evolve at light heavyweight, and the game certainly didn't evolve at heavyweight. If anything, it got fucking worse. The skill set just got worse. The striking is worse. The grappling is worse. We just have bigger, more powerful athletes now. I mean, if you watch Little Nog versus Shogun 2, and this is them already being way past their prime. This is them way past, and also. Another major reason why Pride heavyweights got sparked in the UFC left and right, they were fucking old. They spent all this time, they spent all their primes in Pride, knocking each other out. That's the reason. They were just past it. UFC and its fucking narratives, man. But where was I? Oh yeah, Shogun versus Little Nog, the second fight. The one that happened in the UFC. Both shot to fucking pieces. Shogun was shot ever since. He was already shot in Pride, and Little Nog was putting on years in the UFC as well, and he was already putting on years in Pride. And if you look at the skill level that they display with Little Nog's boxing and Shogun's ability to curtail Little Nog's boxing with his kickboxing game, with his kicking, you just don't see that shit in the more than light heavyweight division, and heavyweight for that matter. Like Big Nog versus Heath Herring, the grappling overall compared to Heath Herring and compared to what Big Nog and Heath Herring were able to display, it's just plain worse. It's just worse. Do I think that Yuri Prohaska is a way better athlete than all of those names that I've just mentioned? Yes, of course. Fucking of course he is. Do I think he's a better fighter in terms of skill? No. It's not a linear scale. Progression in MMA is not a linear scale. It doesn't... I mean, the average level, the average fighter level, I suppose, progresses. The average athleticism, across the board, progresses, but The standout athletes will always be standout athletes, no matter the era. And the same goes for Fedor as well. It goes double for Fedor because he used to do things that no one is able to replicate to this day, even at the lower weights. The way he game planned, the way he utilized, the way he worked in transition and fucking mixed the martial arts. No one does that. I mean, there are like a couple names that I would think that's kind of approach the same level of like overall MMA excellence, I guess, like which is Piotr Yan and Alexander Volkanovski, and the rest have massive asterisks on top of them, on top of their names. Like Khabib Nurmagomedov, specialist. Max Holloway, specialist, also relies on his attributes a lot. Both rely on their attributes a lot. And I mean, relying on your attributes at the highest level is kind of necessary, but also there is a fine line between relying on them, getting by your attributes, and leveraging your attributes in an intelligent way. And also, there's like a ton of nuance. I'm not saying that Max Holloway just is essentially just a chin and a gas tank, but a lot of his game is predicated on him being Max Holloway, being basically kind of, invincible with an endless gas tank. You get the idea. I've talked about this over and over again on the podcast and all the panels that we've had. We've talked about this at the fight side for a while now. We've restated and we've revisited the same talking points for a couple of years now. If you're a repeat listener, you should know what I'm talking about. And if you're a new listener, then just go back and listen to all the shit that I've recorded over the years. Okay. Fuck. Again, where was I? What I was talking about? Jesus. Oh yeah, the dumb takes. Like Fedor and the ridiculous takes surrounding Fedor. I mean, just to quote directly, Daniel Cormier said that Fedor Emelianenko would have been average at best had he come to the UFC in 2009. Let me make one thing clear. This one thing. Fedor Emelianenko would have made DC puke his fucking guts out. If you go back and watch Fedor, even 2009 Fedor, who was pretty bad already by then, he was still a massive body puncher and body kicker. Remember the one weakness that Daniel Cormier has? The one chink in his armor? Like, Daniel Cormier is overall an incredibly, an absurdly, disgustingly durable fighter. But there is one little thing that he dislikes the most, that he fucking hates. And that's body punching, and that's the body attack. Yeah, and people talk about how DC would wrestle Fedor Emelianenko, and I mean, fucking come on. Just, Daniel Cormier is an Olympian, and DC never really wrestled anyone decent in MMA, really. John Jones and Stipe Miocic have made it abundantly clear that for Daniel Cormier to be able to wrestle you, he either has to have an enormous athletic advantage, or you have to suck at wrestling. I'm sorry, but if you go back and watch his fights, that's true. That is the truth. Thing is, Daniel Cormier has struggled with a geriatric Anderson Silva, a middleweight. And people always point to how Daniel Cormier was able to ragdoll Henderson. Like, yeah, totally. Throwing a Triassic era Henderson around and getting stalled by a geriatric Silva is what I'd call Olympic level wrestling. I mean, this sport is ripe with recency bias in general, and people will. I'm betting. I bet that this podcast is gonna get a bunch of commenters who are gonna like shriek about, are gonna um, cry and piss their pants about me being biased against Daniel Cormier purely because Fedor Emelianenko is Russian. Like, I do not identify as a Russian, first of all. I'm not even fucking Russian ethnically. I'm just a Russian citizen. That's two very, very, very different things. You'd know this if you followed me for any length of time, and you know what I think about this whole thing. Let's leave it at that before I get gulagged. Just the guy who outstruck Krokop is gonna struggle with DC. Oh, yeah, sure. And there were even wilder fucking statements. Like Deontay Wilder tier delusion. Just one guy was like, there was this one guy who talked about how Fyodor would be better than average, but he would lose to Stipe. Stipe, all right, okay, this is possible. DC, disagree vehemently. Gano, okay, I guess, maybe. Gun, fucking no. And Curtis Blades would beat him handily. Like, Curtis Blades? Curtis fucking Blades? Jesus. And just the follow-up to this statement was even, like, crazy. I'm just basically just looking up ridiculous fucking comments that were left by people who do not watch MMA. And I mean, I guess, sure, you shouldn't watch MMA, but when you talk about... If you don't watch MMA, then you shouldn't talk about MMA, for fuck's sake. Like, there was this guy who was like, tried to break down Fedor Emelianenko's game. Like, he was active and concise with his hands, but he didn't feint or set traps. His grappling was excellent, but his offensive wrestling was only slightly above average by today's standards. I think all these guys could beat him on the feet or control him on the ground for ground and pound. Didn't feint! Fyodor Emelianenko didn't feint and didn't set traps. You know what? I'm done with this topic. This is dumb. This is fucking stupid. This is just only. This is only killing my neurons. Basically, getting mad about this whole thing. Like, this is such an incredibly common, but also an incredibly like flawed argument. Like just like in every sport, today's athletes are bigger, faster, and stronger and are a lot more skilled. And just like every sport, that's not the case in all other sports either. You know. Like, elite athletes are always going to be elite. That's the whole thing about elite athletes. If you go back and watch fucking Sugar Ray Robinson, if you go away thinking that Sugar Ray Robinson wouldn't be able to hang in modern boxing, then you should get your fucking eyes checked or maybe find a different hobby. That's literally it. Just stop right there. Stop right there, criminal scum! You have violated the law! And the law is that you shouldn't say stupid shit. You shouldn't say shit about the thing you don't know shit about, unless you've spent at least some time studying it. People always ask me, "Oh, Iggy, how you were able to become like a fight analyst? What should one do to become a fight analyst?" What I did was to shut my fucking mouth for 2 years, and do nothing but watch fights and study other people's analysis. And then, and only then, when I was just basically halfway sure that I'm not gonna say anything stupid, I started conversing with people who are smarter than me, or at least people who are more knowledgeable than me in terms of understanding fighting. That's all you have to do, basically. But I mean, this is social media. Social media is designed in such a way to encourage people to speak before they think. And I think it's like this whole cultural thing. It's become a whole cultural thing to seek engagement. Any engagement is always good engagement. Like getting ratioed is no big deal, as long as you're getting like notifications on your phone. As long as your tweet has blown up, then you're doing great. Alright. Need to caffeinate further. Recording this, basically I just woke up, and then I jumped behind my desk, sat in front of my computer, and started ranting. Be right back. And I'm back. What a wonderful invention, the pause button. Alright. Where was I? Well, basically I've run out of topics to talk about. I mean, I guess I could go deep into the whole thing and like break down Fedor Emelianenko, but I mean, it's been done already. It's been done by many people before, and I guess I could add my own personal spin on what I think about Fedor's style and his legacy and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think, you know what? I may just call Dan Albert and call Hacks, maybe call Kyle McLaughlin, and do a whole case study on Fedor Emelianenko with like just an in-depth sort of thing, kind of like what we've done with Tyron Woodley, but this time about, you know, an all-time great fighter. Yeah, really, just not much to talk about. I mean, the whole like recently. Instead of where am I going with this? What do I want to say? Hang on, I'm trying to think of a good segue for good like transition to transition to the topic I actually want to talk about. Oh yeah, I talked about punch mechanics earlier in the episode, and I talked about how Marvin Vettori is hurt by having like janky, by stifling his own offense and stifling his own punches. And Fedor Emelianenko is a weird one because his punching form is always like, people always talk about how he would always throw these weird casting hooks, and thing is, he still transfers a lot of weight into those punches. And you only have to watch the recent knockout of the video of him knocking out Timothy Johnson to understand like just how powerful his punches are. And he's still fast too. Like he's shot to pieces, shot to absolute fucking pieces. Just everything that made him the special fighter is gone, except the speed. I mean, it's faded a little, but it's still there. And with that kind of speed and that kind of power, I mean, you could the heavyweight division is so shit that you could reasonably try and matchmake Fyodor with other UFC heavyweights, and he's liable to end up in top 10 at the very least. It's just kind of hilarious to think about. And then you go back and watch his earlier fights and realize that he used to be even faster. Like, I mean, I guess that's the one area where DC would have been able to hang in there with Fyodor, which is speed, because DC was also outrageously fast. But When it comes to skill, he wasn't as skillful. Like, not by a long shot. Like the clinch exchanges could have been fun, and I mean, yeah, I guess DC could land a couple bus driver uppercuts from single color tie, but then Fedor would just chuck him off and go like, okay, and then take his fucking head off. Because DC hasn't really fought anyone who's not, like any good in the clinch, and the clinch is where Fedor excelled. And John Jones made it abundantly clear that if you're better than DC in the clinch, then you should be able to handle him handily. But I've had enough of this topic, really. I'm kind of sick of it. I guess there is a more in-depth discussion about this whole thing is warranted. There are a whole bunch of myths that need to be busted at some point or another, but not today. Today's a solo ranty episode. I like having these back to basics episodes, like splice them in between all the topical discussions that I do with guests. Punch mechanics is a weird one. Most people's idea of how to punch comes from movies. And in movies and I guess TV shows, there is a particular way in which they teach stuntmen and actors by extension to strike. Because if you throw a mechanically correct, a proper punch, it won't look as good on camera. Or at least they think it wouldn't look as good on camera, because I'm pretty sure if you were to choreograph a fight scene in such a way where all of the strikes were thrown with proper mechanics, then the fight scene could have been could end up being much more interesting than what you usually see. But either way, that's why you see characters in movies throw these wide arcing swings, or just throw clotheslines instead of proper hooks. You often see this, and you see this particularly often in Hong Kong cinema. Like, for example, if you watch a Jackie Chan movie, instead of jabs, he throws these back fists, and instead of hooks, he throws these clotheslines with this whole arm, like with a straight arm swinging from the shoulder. And the reason for that is that it just it's more visible on camera, and since people don't really understand much about fighting on average, to them it still looks good. It looks more interesting than a mechanically proper punch. And the shows that try, I've recently watched. I've recently tried watching a Korean series on Netflix. Well, not on Netflix. I fucking stole it from torrents, because I'm not gonna pay for Netflix. Suck my dick, sue me. Yeah, it's called My Name. It's about an undercover police. It's a weird premise. A girl who is trained by her father, who is I guess has ties with the Korean mob, is killed, and she, as revenge, she gets recruited by Korean mafia and then trained in martial arts and edged weaponry and all that kind of stuff, and then she goes undercover as a police officer to try and find the killer of her father. Yeah, and the whole thing is that it's a small girl running around beating everyone's ass, and some of the fight scenes are very well made, especially the ones that's where she has some kind of weapon, some kind of edged weapon, or like at least a baton in hand. And whenever it's just her straight up fighting other guys, it just looks horrible. It looks abysmal. And whoever taught her like kickboxing, that's what I assume she trained in. Either that or because she doesn't really use taekwondo techniques, unlike some of the other actors in the show. And what she is being taught during her mafia days is explicitly based on MMA. She's explicitly being taught MMA, and she's being taught all the just the stupidest, the most bullshit, pointless meme strikes that there are in MMA. I mean, I guess it's inevitable that the movie industry that this is what the movie industry will latch onto. They're not gonna study what makes for good MMA. They're gonna take all the flashy stuff that you usually see in MMA and implement that in their choreography. I mean, I guess there was one really good sequence in one of the episodes where she was training. Uh, it's it's like a mafia ritual, like some kind of like the blooding thing that they do, where they gather a bunch of people and they kick the shit out of each other, and the one who remains standing is the one who gets inducted, or something like that. Some kind of like mafia ritual. All right, and she knocks out the last guy with like a 1-2 into a spinning elbow setup, which is actually works pretty well and makes a lot of sense for someone her size. But whenever she's shown hitting the bag or just boxing, it looks fucking atrocious. And teaching proper punch mechanics isn't that hard, even if the person you're teaching them to is like woefully uncoordinating. All it takes is a bunch of guided heavy bag sessions. And she like hits, she does all the most common mistakes. She hits the bag from like a half a meter away, stifling all her own punches, and she punches like Marvin Vettori, or I guess Marvin Vettori punches like a small Korean girl. I don't know, but like, I guess most of the fight sequences are the choreography for them is as far as the movie industry goes, they're very well made, but all the Netflix cliches and staples, I guess, that have been implemented over the years by Netflix, like it just looks like a random Netflix show, and it kind of like takes away from the action a bit. I think the lighting is really really good. It kind of reminded me of Night Comes For Us, the Indonesian movie, like all the stark contrasting lighting and like that creates this really like moody but nonetheless really like energetic atmosphere. It's really cool, but the way it's filmed, it's way too Netflixy for me, because I've seen a whole bunch of Netflix shows where there's fighting involved and all the fight scenes like just fucking look the same. And I guess this is an in-house decision. This is an executive decision to film all fight scenes the same way. It's kind of like a camera following the character around from the back, and then it kind of sort of like moves around them, shows them from the front, and then it moves back behind them again to make to create this sense of an unbroken shot. And obviously there's also the single take scenes that kind of overstay their welcome. They've overstayed their fuck. They have overstayed their welcome a bit lately, because choreographing single take shots is a tremendous amount of work, and after a certain point, most people just give up and go, "Oh, that's good enough." And it leads to scenes where you can see it leads to things like people getting knocked out with telekinetic kicks, like the force kick that Luke Skywalker knocked out a guy in Return of the Jedi. Knocked out a guy with in Return of the Jedi. This is what happens. But I wasn't able to finish the show because the pacing is just horrendous. The pacing in Netflix shows is kind of like really, really fucking bad in general. I can't seem to recall a single Netflix show where I didn't find myself skipping through some of the scenes. Even Daredevil, which is a really good show, I guess a decent show. Like if you subjectively, personally, I really liked some of the moments in there, but objectively, if you look at it from from a storytelling perspective and from all the like cinematic scruples type thing, it's not that good. And some of the things in there, the pacing is just objectively garbage. I've tried watching Altered Carbon because I'm a fan of the books. And first of all, the books are way, way better. You should just read the books instead of watching the show. And once again, the pacing is just absolutely atrocious. Especially in episodes like... It's a common thing. In episodes, let's say from 4 to 6, usually, the pacing just nosedives. It just... The whole thing slows to a fucking crawl. The same thing happened in My Name, and the same thing happened in Squid Games. Squid Games, another show. Like, to quote my friend, to quote my real life friend, I haven't watched Squid Games, but I'm fucking sick of it already. And that's kind of the common occurrence whenever something goes viral, I guess. But visual design, great, no complaints about it. I guess sort of like kind of on the nose with all the PlayStation signs that they use. The plot, kind of like 6.5 out of 10, maybe 7 out of 10, I guess. It's not a new concept. Hunting the most dangerous game, all that kind of stuff. People like talking about how this sort of plot is more relevant than ever. It's not more relevant than ever. It's just relevant because nothing fucking changed. I guess I think Jay Bauman from Red Letter Media said this about what was it? There was a recent review that he's done. It doesn't matter. But yeah, the same basic Netflix problems. The editing, the Netflix editing that is annoying at times. The pacing is a big one. Netflix shows are paced horribly on average, just across the board. Don't get me started on fucking Punisher. Like, Netflix managed to ruin the fucking Punisher. How do you manage to do that? Like, trying to cram the same Netflix formula, like an overarching plot that you're meant, and making a show that is meant to be binged. It just doesn't work for the Punisher. All this government conspiracy stuff. I guess, yeah, sure, Garth Ennis's run dealt with some of that, but it started and concluded very quickly. It was paced, like it was all packed very densely. It wasn't like spread out. It wasn't. Most Netflix shows have enough plot in there for, let's say, 5, maybe even 4 episodes, and then it gets stretched out. The Punisher and Daredevil by extension had a plot that would fill like maybe 6 really good dense episodes, and it was stretched out to 13. Squid Games, like 5-6 games, each episode is a new game. We didn't really need all the returning home type stuff that was in there, and it would have made for a much sharper, crisper show, much sharper, crisper pacing, if it were done the way I suggested. And the Punisher, coming back to the Punisher, it's the one thing that I'm just so pissed off about it. I'm so disappointed, because the way that Punisher was portrayed in Daredevil was just kind of got me hooked. I think it was one of the finest comic book portrayals in a while. And then it's just turned into this mush. There is a cuck subplot where Punisher kidnaps Micro and like ties him down in front of a bunch of screens in like his own Batcave, and then makes him watch like as he comes to his wife's house and goes like, Like, oh, I heard you need some. I heard some of your pipes need cleaning, huh? Like, and Micro is there. No, don't clean my wife's pipes. He's like sitting like, no, don't cock me, Punisher. And the Punisher is like, helps his son like clear a very difficult level in like a video game. Repairs like the coffee machine. That helps them with cable. The fucking attaboy scene, the one where the Punisher just plays ball with the kid for like half an hour. Just atrocious, ridiculous. Who wants to see this? Who thought this was a good idea? This whole thing with humanizing the Punisher. You don't need to fucking humanize the Punisher or like make a human connection. The whole point of the Punisher is that there is no human connection. He's fucking dead inside. All he does is just go from criminal to criminal, like go from neighborhood to neighborhood and kill all the criminals in there. That's it. What you should have done was make an episodic show. It's like the classic 90s formula, like the 80s formula. Like a knight errant walking the earth. Like the Punisher riding around in his SUV. Like he's heard... he's caught wind of a certain cartel working, specializing in human trafficking around the U.S.-Mexico border, and the Punisher is on his way there. That's the overarching plot for the, I guess, for the first three episodes. And the Punisher get like, if you need a filler episode, the Punisher gets stuck in a small Arizona town because the Punisher saw, he stopped at the gas station, and then he saw that the locals are being harassed by a gang, a vicious gang of I don't know, petty, it's a petty protection racket, and so he stops. If you absolutely need to humanize him a bit, then he just stops at a motel, and the motel staff tries to socialize with him, and he just doesn't. He just won't. But he helps them out. Like he runs and the fight scenes. They're trying to cram in the same. They've tried to cram in the same Netflix type fight scenes where like, oh, it's so vicious and so visceral. Oh, the Punisher gets beat up and he yells a lot, and then he uses everything that he can get his hands on to win the fight. And I guess it's fine. It has its place, but the Punisher just generally, it's not what the Punisher is. Generally what he does is that he uses military precision to scout out his opponents, and then he just shoots them all. And this is what he should do from episode to episode. Oh, he runs recon, finds the lair of the bad guys, and then he fucking shoots everyone and blows them up. And it would make for a fine show. It would be fine. It's okay. Fucking Netflix, man. What was this show about again? Was this was this something about combat sports analysis, or like, I don't fucking even know. I guess this is just a sign that I've like basically ran out of things to say about anything. I guess there is this. There's the UFC this weekend. The UFC card this weekend, which UFC 267. The main event is Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira. The co-main is, of course, Petr Yan versus Corey Sandhagen. Islam Makhachev, Dan Hooker, Alexander Volkov, Marcin Tybura. The Leech versus Hamzat Chimaev, Magomed Ankalaev versus Volkan Ozdemir. And then the prelims are prelims. You know, I could have previewed this card instead of doing what I was doing for the past 30 minutes. You know what? Fuck it. I guess Fenny and Dan Albert are going to do another one of their full previews where they break down every single matchup on the card, and I just don't have the patience for it. as you may have noticed. And there's going to be a staff picks article on the card, and if you and if you're dying to know my thoughts on the card, then I guess just subscribe to our Patreon at the $5 tier and hop into our Discord so you can pester me with your questions about matchups I don't care about. Mate, don't get me wrong. This is a really good card, and I would like to catch it live. Not sure if I'll be able to, because it's also my best friend's birthday. I'll figure something out. Maybe even hop in to do the alternate commentaries. Haven't done that in a while. Wanted to do alternate commentary for Tyson Fury vs. Wilder 3, and sort of forgot about it because I started watching the fight, and then when the fight started, it was like it blew my socks off, and I couldn't. I guess I wouldn't be able to comment anything besides making ooh and ah noises. So it's fine. Yeah, so look forward to all that stuff. Look forward to my new series where I review movies that have fight scenes in them, which is 99% of them. I'm just joking. I'm not gonna fucking review movies. I've done that. I've been a pop culture blogger for 5, maybe 6 years before I started doing this, and just got so sick of it. Everything is just the same. I hope you enjoyed this weird little fucking an hour long tangent of an episode. If you stop listening to Tengridome after this one, then I don't blame you one bit. Alright, I've done all the plugs. Subscribe to our Patreon. Check out the fight site. Dan Albert has recently started republishing some of his articles that he first wrote on his personal blog, and the latest one is a detailed breakdown of Petr Yan versus Jimmy Rivera. Highly recommend you check that one out. It's thefight-site.com. So subscribe to our Patreon to get access to all the alternate commentary and the 3-rounders marathons that me and Fenny have recorded. And subscribe to at the $5 tier to gain access to our Discord once again. And we've also very recently, we've released a jiu-jitsu instructional on the Gooseneck style of guillotine. It's a very useful technique that even both novices and advanced students would benefit from this technique immensely. You can purchase it for $60 through PayPal. The links should be provided on our Twitter account. I think it's the pinned tweet. The pinned tweet. You can also subscribe at the $50 tier on our Patreon and gain access to the instructional this way, and then you can always sort of bump your subscription. You can bump your subscription to, for fuck's sake. You can lower your tier to pay less money after you've downloaded the instructional and then gain access to all the shit that we've put out over the years. There you go. Finally. Alright, we are done. Enough of this mess. This has been Tengridome, episode 25. Bye, I guess. Tune in next time to listen to me rant about video games for 120 minutes. Cheers.